Hello and welcome to STS Presents. Today we're going to talk about the 4 common mistakes that people make when it comes to tapering for their big races. Number 1 common mistake that people make when it comes to tapering for big races is tapering randomly. And this coincides with training randomly. Here at STS, we're all about systematic training, and that means systematic tapering. Number 2, 0 to 0. You train like crazy and then do absolutely 0 training leading up to your big race. That is a big mistake, and we'll talk about that. Number 3, last minute Mickeys. People try to squeeze in last minute big sessions thinking that in the last couple of weeks before their big race that they can improve their fitness. Guys, in the last couple of weeks before the big race, the hay's in the barn, and we're going to address this. Number 4, start tapering way too early. By tapering too early, we can peak too early. We don't want that. We want to peak on race day, and we'll talk about that. When we're talking training randomly and tapering randomly, what this causes is random performances. You might by accident hit your taper right on and feel great, but most likely if you're tapering randomly and doing random sessions to try to make sure that you feel good on race day, you're going to feel, more than likely you're going to feel sluggish and off, and it's just not something that we want to do because it causes stress, it causes a poor performance, and that's not fun at all. So guys, here at Siska Training Systems, we're about a system. So in your training, you need to keep a system. When you have your long runs, when you have your key bikes, when you have your key runs. This same system that you implement in training needs to coincide with what you do in taper. We don't want to do anything differently during taper time. If we keep the same training pattern during taper time, we can predict much easier when we're going to feel good on race day. The only thing that we do different is that we shave a little bit of the volume off here and there. So let's go back, let's say from your peak race, 2 weeks back. Let's say your long run, for example, we'll do the run, is 90 minutes 2 weeks back from your big race. Or that's what it usually is. Well, instead of it being 90 minutes, we need to cut off about 20 minutes and we'll make it 70 minutes. So we're still doing a long run per se, but we're doing 20 minutes less. And trust me, this 20 minutes, and if we do this kind of shaving off in all other sports, it will gradually lead to us feeling good. So that same week, our long bike might have been 2.5 hours in our peak volume. Now, 2 weeks out from our big race, instead of it being 2.5 hours, we're just going to have 2 hours. So look what we just did. We shaved 20 minutes from our long run, and we shaved 30 minutes from our long bike, and now that's almost 1 hour of shaving off of our usual training time. Your body's going to thank you for that. But we were still training, so the body is still in a familiar rhythm, and that's what the body likes. It likes to keep things familiar so it knows what's going on. And then you know what's going on, and you can predict when you're going to feel good. So let's talk the swim. Say your big swim 2 weeks out was 4K. Or you've been swimming 4K swims. Now, we still want to keep close to that, but we'll just shave off a little and go 3.5K. So you've shaved off from 4K to 3.5, and your bike you've shaved off from 2.5 to 2, and your run you've shaved off from 90 minutes to 1 hour and 10. That's quite a bit. And then we go a week closer to the big day. So last week our bike was 2 hours, so now we're going to shave off a little more. Now instead of 2 hours, we're going to go 1 hour and 40. Instead of 1 hour and 10 on the bike, hour and 10 on the run, we're going to go 50 minutes. Instead of 3.5K, now we're only going to go 3K. So that's our training volume from a week out. So we're still keeping a familiar pattern. Now let's talk about those key sessions. say in your key track session 2 weeks out, you were going 5Ks worth of work. So now we need to shave off a K. So let's go 4Ks worth of work. Okay? Same thing, that same principle applies. We keep things sharp, but we just shave off a little here and there, and we still do the same type of sessions leading up to our big race. Now let's talk about going from hero to zero. People do everything right, they're training like crazy, they're training really, really hard, and then when it comes time to their big race, they decide, well, I've got to freshen up, and they do absolutely nothing. So you go from this kind of training volume up here to doing absolutely nothing down here. Your body's going to go into absolute shock. That's how you can shock the system. It's not going to know what's going on. We just talked about previously that the body likes to know and have a rhythm, and if you take away its rhythm and do absolutely nothing, it's going to recover, yes, and you'll see the benefits of it down the road, but it might not show up in time for your peak race. So that's why it's important, like in the previous mistake that we talked about, is that you keep a training pattern, keep a rhythm, keep things familiar, keep doing the same things. Don't go from hero to zero. Third common mistake that people make is they do the opposite of what we just said. They haven't been training all that much leading up to their big event, and they realize, they look at their calendar and they're like, oh crap, the big race is here. Let's try to squeeze some training in. Let's get those big bike rides in. Let's get those big runs in. Guys, 2 weeks out from your big race, the hay should already be in the barn. You're only going to hurt yourself by trying to get that last big huge run in or last big huge bike in. It's better that if you haven't been training that much at all leading up to the race, just keep doing very little, and it's better to make sure that the body is fresh and sharp than trying to squeeze in big last minute sessions that just the fitness benefits of those will just not get there in time for your race. So as we've been talking about in the 2 previous mistakes, the body likes a rhythm, a common rhythm. So keep that rhythm. If you haven't been training that much, don't train that much leading up to your big race. It's too late. But on the flip side, there's people that have been training a lot, and then, you know, us triathletes, highly motivated workhorses, and they think to themselves, oh, I've just got to keep on, I don't want to rest here, I'll lose fitness. No, guys, don't, this is a common thing that people have. You're not going to lose fitness by resting. You did the work, it's in your system, you're going to reap the benefits. We need to rest now. We need to start shaving off the top so that we can feel fresh and good on race day. Like I said, 2 weeks out before your big race, the hay's already in the barn. Anything that you do now, fitness-wise, you're not going to gain any new fitness by the training that you do in those last 2 weeks. You can only hurt yourself. That's why it's real important that we keep the body sharp and ward away sluggishness by keeping the same kind of training pattern that we've been keeping all along. And the fourth common mistake, and this one is a little bit more complicated, but people do it all the time. They peak too early. So their race might be on November, or let's say August 17th is their key race, and they're feeling great, feeling good on August 12th. So obviously we don't want that to happen. And the reason this happens is people start resting too early before their big race, and that causes them to peak too early before their big race. Alright? You don't need to, and this is all relative to the amount of training that you've been doing leading up to this in the past 6 months. If you've trained a whole lot, then you can start tapering sooner. If you haven't trained that much at all, if you taper too soon, you will most definitely peak too early. But all in all, pro triathletes, people who are experienced with triathlon, triathletes in general, not like swimmers and runners, they don't like to taper too long because it's all about that body rhythm. Basically, you just kind of have really big rest days 3 or 4 days before the big event. you keep that same training pattern going. I know I'm sounding like a broken record now, but that is the key. Keep things the same and only cut a little bit here, a little bit there off the top, a few less reps on the track, a few less threshold efforts in the pool, and that will leave you sharp on race day. So peaking too early is all relative to the amount that you've done prior to the big race, but you just have to make sure that it correlates with the amount of training you did beforehand with the amount of time that you taper. If you're a seasoned triathlete and you've been racing for years and years and years, you can have 3 races back to back to back and you can be rested for all of them because your fitness level is so high that you can ride the wave of that taper for quite some time. If your fitness level is not that high, you can't ride the wave of the taper very long. So I have another video that talks more in depth about this. If you look into the periodization video and the base training video, we get more in depth about this. But here when it comes to taper, be careful of peaking too early by resting too early. So with that said, thank you for watching this video, guys. I hope it was helpful. We want to make sure that you can reap the fruits of your hard work and taper correctly so that on race day you're feeling your absolute best. And I wish you all the best in your races. Take care for now.